Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's People's Garden webinar. I'm John Rice, and I work with USDA's Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, otherwise known as OUAIP. This office is a government resource that supports producers through grants, agreements, a federal advisory committee, and of course, the People's Garden Initiative. We encourage gardens everywhere to register their garden for free. Visit usda.gov/People's Garden to get connected with other gardens from across the country and learn about helpful resources and information. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar, please place them in the Q&A box by clicking the icon at the bottom of the screen. The recorded webinar will be posted to our website within a week. Today's webinar, Gardening to Bring Cultures and Communities Together, we'll explore the links between culture and gardening, and we'll consider how culture and history affect what you grow in your garden. One of the ways we're exploring this topic is through the eyes of Peace Corps volunteers. In more than 60 countries, these volunteers are putting their purpose, skills, and passion to work in partnership with welcoming host communities. This brings us to our first guest on today's webinar. His name is Brian Gussey, and he recently became the director of OUAIP. He served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Mali, West Africa, many years ago. After this, he spent 22 years at USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, overseeing a variety of programs related to international food assistance, technical assistance and capacity building, and fellowship and exchange programs. Brian is here to discuss his experience with the Peace Corps. Welcome, Brian, and thank you for joining us today.
Hey, John, thanks. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. It's great to see so many folks on the line here. It's my pleasure to be here. So whenever I travel, I really make a point of telling people about this webinar series and what I consider to be a great platform that USDA is providing for sharing of information and building a community across the country and now perhaps the world. So as John mentioned, prior to taking this position with the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, I worked in USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, where for 23 years, I strove to make the world smaller by bringing people together based on all the things we have in common, rather than focusing on our differences. I learned this important life lesson, having served as an agriculture gardening volunteer in the US Peace Corps in Mali, West Africa in the early 90s. My experience in Mali was like that of many Peace Corps volunteers of the time. I lived in a small agrarian village where no one spoke English. I lived with a Malian family in a compound of mud huts with thatched roofs, no running water, and no electricity. I shared my meals with my family, eating out of a common bowl. I learned the local language, Bambara, and was given a Malian name of Shekora, meaning new man. Those first few months in the village were incredibly challenging. I didn't start off speaking Bambara, and with no language to connect us, I had to find other ways to connect with my family and my villagers. And fortunately for me, that was gardening. Within the first week or so of the village, I was given a small plot of land to start my own vegetable garden. And I had come prepared with vegetable seeds that I brought from home, seeds that my own mom, who grew up on an urban farm in St. Louis, gave me before I left for Mali. She told me that she wanted me to grow things from home to make me remember where I come from, and so that it would remind me of home. Little did I know that what I was going to be planting was actually a staple for my Malian village. When I pulled out a seed packet for planting, a seed packet of okra, my Malian mother, Kumba, who you see in the background photo behind me, she ran into her kitchen hut and brought out some dried okra that she had grown. And there was my first connection to my new family. We bonded over okra. A few years later, when I returned home to the US, I shared this story with my mom, who explained to me why her family was growing okra in St. Louis. Her grandfather, an immigrant from Germany in the late 1800s, actually learned to grow okra from the freed slaves who had migrated to St. Louis from the South. So for me, personally, okra made a full circle, bridging cultures and bringing people together. My Malian brother, who now lives in Spain with his wife and kids, who I still am in contact with after all these years, recently sent me a photo of his kids harvesting okra in their garden in Spain. So my story about connecting is really about okra. So today's webinar focuses on gardening to bring cultures and communities together. And I'm sure that many of you out there can relate or have similar stories of how gardening has brought communities together. Some of my office's grant recipients are building community farms that support immigrant and refugee communities, helping them with the integration process while at the same time enabling them to celebrate and share their own cultures through food with their new neighbors. One of the People's Gardens in Chicago that I visited last summer has dedicated space for some of the new immigrants in their community, where crops such as bitter melon, lemongrass, and choysum have been introduced and are finding a way into local diets and herbal remedies. People find common ground. It's how we survive, and it's how we have thrived. So I'm really excited to hear some of the stories that are going to be shared with us today about how cultures other than our own are also engaged in gardening to provide food for families, building strong, resilient communities. So John, back over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. That was a really great story. I think the audience really appreciated that. Next, I would like to introduce Andrew Wilson. Andrew is the director of the Office of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services at the Peace Corps. He was a Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal, West Africa from 1994 to 1996 and served as a volunteer leader for the northern region of Senegal in 1997. He is going to tell us his experience and introduce 4 short videos that we have lined up for you today. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks to Brian for his great stories about his time in Mali. Really resonates with me for some very similar experiences. Thanks to all the participants in the event today and everyone taking the time to attend the webinar. And certainly this event could not happen without the contributions and support of the staff of Peace Corps Senegal, including the head of the agriculture program there, a gentleman named Arfang Sadio. And if there's any of my Senegalese friends online here today, I say Jerejef or Ajarama, which are a couple different ways to say thank you in Wolof and Pular, respectively. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here. As John noted, I was a sustainable agriculture volunteer in Senegal. I stayed for a 3rd year as a regional volunteer leader, and actually stayed as a 4th year following Peace Corps, working with a Senegalese farmer on organic vegetable production trials. Here in the US, in addition to working for several years at USDA, I managed a hydroponic greenhouse in New Jersey and an organic vegetable farm in Pennsylvania. And really, nothing makes me happier than when I can bring together my current work at the Peace Corps and my passion for gardening and farming. But before I talk about my own experience, I want to provide a little bit of basic background information about the Peace Corps for those that might not be familiar with the agency and our work. So the Peace Corps is an independent US government agency that has been doing international development work in over 143 countries for over 62 years and has 3 goals. The first goal is to work alongside the members in the communities in the countries where we serve to meet their locally identified needs. And you're going to see some great examples of that in a few minutes. To meet these local needs, volunteers work in 6 sectors, typically for a 2-year assignment. Currently, there's around 1,600 volunteers in 55 countries around the world. We are still building back from when we had to globally evacuate all 7,000 volunteers from 61 countries in March of 2020. And just last March is when we started going back, but we're already up to 55 countries, again, with 1,600 volunteers and lots of interest from many more countries as well. In these countries, volunteers typically work in 6 sectors. So it's community economic development, education, environment, health, youth and development, and of course, agriculture. And again, you're going to see some more videos about that soon. So that's the first goal of Peace Corps, is working alongside folks in these communities to meet their needs. The second goal is to help local populations have a better understanding about Americans. It's not uncommon, particularly for individuals and communities that have not had previous interactions with Americans, for there to be a somewhat narrow understanding of what it means to be American and who Americans might be. And so by living and working in these communities, we can help demonstrate the amazing diversity of backgrounds, ethnicities, and perspectives that make up the rich tapestry of our country. The third goal is to help Americans have a better understanding of the individuals, communities, and countries where Peace Corps volunteers serve. This is a big part of the work of my office, and we accomplish this through a range of activities, including events like this webinar today, but also through experiences such as return volunteers doing a presentation with a Girl Scouts troop here in the United States, or a volunteer doing a letter writing exchange with a middle school. So I'm going to speak very quickly about my personal experience. So again, I spent 3 years of my service in the northern part of Senegal, where the population was largely comprised of individuals that spoke a language called Pulaar. Individuals in this region make their livelihood primarily either through farming or herding goats, sheep, and cows. It is very hot and dry there. I can still remember my parents sending me a news clipping of the town next to where I was living as having the highest temperature in the world that day, which I think unfortunately feels a lot similar to where we are in many parts of the US right now. But rainfall was minimal. It only occurs sporadically during about 3 months of the year. Similar to probably to Brian, I lived in a compound with about 5 families in a small village called Chambe. Under 1,000 people in this village, and I worked in the village itself and in the surrounding area, both with individual farmers and with women's groups. My work there involved 3 primary activities. One is helping set up market gardens that were mainly used to help with income generation and to supplement other food sources. Did some agroforestry work, which is around how to use local tree species to create living fences that could protect gardens and crops. I mentioned that the local population was a mix of farmers and herders, and these groups can often have competing interests. As it could be prohibitively expensive to buy fencing, agroforestry was a tool to create permanent and largely cost-free barriers between crops and animals. The last part of my job was helping test, socialize, and distribute improved varieties of local crops. For example, black-eyed peas were grown for both food and fodder, and I work with a Senegalese extension agent on testing new varieties that grew faster and that were more productive. But the most important takeaway to share is that any success achieved in these projects was that it was based on the connections that I was able to make by living and working alongside the people in my village and in the area. And this is really what I meant by the goals 2 and 3 of Peace Corps. Learning and speaking Pulaar was a big part of that. But that came with time, similar to with Brian. Like that was a struggle. It took many months and really years to master the language, at least so I could communicate effectively with folks. But it really was by working together on the garden projects and on farms and working with people like the host mother in my village, a woman named Aissa Daba, that made those incredibly meaningful connections necessary for the work to be successful. It was taking a donkey cart with her every day, this amazing woman and grandmother, to weed and tend to her cowpeas and milled fields, that I learned so much about how and why they planted their crops how they did, how they dealt with the insects and animal pests, and what did and did not work with new varieties of crops. I really can't say enough about the impression and impact that the connection that I made with Aissa, but perhaps the fact that my oldest daughter, Aisha, is named after her gives you an idea of how strong those bonds were. And even today, back here in the United States, I see how gardening can serve as the foundation for creating incredibly strong connections. My wife, who's also Senegalese, and I have a community garden plot in our hometown, and a good number of them individuals at the garden are first-generation immigrants, and it is a tremendous opportunity to form connections with these individuals from diverse backgrounds as we work together towards a common purpose, share information from each of our cultures, and make decades-long connections that help create a powerful sense of community. So I'm going to wrap up with one quick example of this. For years, one of the crops that we have cultivated in our plot is called Bissap in Wolof, the language that my wife speaks. It is a type of hibiscus plant whose leaves can be used to create a sauce and whose flowers are used to make a wonderfully sweet drink. So most people in our garden don't recognize the crop, and is often a conversation piece with other gardeners. But we did find out from one of our neighbors, who is from the Caribbean, that this is the same crop that they cultivate where she's from, and it was originally introduced by Africans that brought seeds with them as part of the transatlantic slave trade. So this garden plot that we have has brought food to our family, but it's also brought history, it's brought culture, it's brought connections and community, and as such has been a central part to our life for many, many years. So now I'd like to introduce several videos filmed by 4 Peace Corps volunteers in Senegal. These videos showcase the various crops, the challenges, and the satisfaction of urban farming in Senegal. And I'd like to thank the volunteers, Brian Rowe, Nadia Fredkin, Emmanuel Sa, and Anastasia Youngs for sending us their video footage, and for the participation of their counterparts, Usman Keita and Mamadou Diallo. I hope you enjoy these videos. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Byron, an urban agriculture Peace Corps volunteer serving in eastern Senegal. Here I work with farmers and gardeners building capacities through trainings and demonstrations. One of the farmers I'm working with is Mamadou Diallo. In this video, he will tell you about his demonstration garden and the work he does here in the city.
Man maa ngi bay maraîchage damay def kanje damay def bisap damay def naana damay def salade waaw ak kaani demee noonu fii bay naa fi ñaari at waaw waaw xam nga Tamba fii ci biir Tamba dafa bari xeer waaye boo demee ci àll bi foofu suuf bi dafa am joor moo gën a neex a béy ci àll bi waaye moyen bi amul ndox soo amee ndox pour nga béy ci àll bi moo gën a baax waaw ci ngay gën a am rendement parce que fii suuf bi dafa am xeer pour nga liggéey ko foo nga am ay fumier waaw boo amee fumier nag mën nga liggéey bu baax waaw waaye àll bi moom suuf bi sonnul soo amee ndox mën nga liggéey bu baax waaw waaw xam nga fii dafa jege marché léegi man su ma jiwee ba pare maanaam bu demee ba mu des ay 15 jours yooyu fukki fan ak juróom damay dem ci marché bi ma wut client ma wutee client ba pare ma liggéey maanaam bu ñoree rek damay dem woo client bi rek mu ñëw jënd su jëndee après mu jox ma sama xaalis ma defaat beneen waaw noonu lay liggéeyee ci liggéey waaw 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 maanaam fii lu gën a baax sax lu ci gën a kii sax ñun presque su ñuy def stage wala ñuy def formation da ngay ñëw parce que ñun lu ñuy def yëpp dañu koy sukkandiku ci calcul maanaam dañoo am lu jóge ba Dakar université ñu ñëw def stage wala ñu jóge école de formation ñëw fii def formation stage léegi ñoom dañoo ñëw fii mu gën leen woon parce que du bind bi rek la ñuy woon moo tax ñu béy tool bi waaw ngay ñëw nga def stage fale nga génni nga ñëw ci man tam ma gën a la woon affaire bi nu muy demee nii la nii ngay def nii ngay def waaw pour nga jële ci xam-xam nga jële ci nga mën ci liggéey waaw waaw lu bari ñëw nañ fii pour xool man tool bi samay partenaires yi ñu may bokk service bi ñoo may conseillé pour ma def tool bi pour loolu waaw ñoo may jàppale jëlal ma mesure ñu ne ma nii ngay def nii ngay def ma def plan yëpp léegi su amee élèves ñuy ñëw wala yeneen liggéey yeneen béykat maanaam pour bugg a def maraîchage mu xool mu ne ah yow sa plan yi dafa rafet kan moo la jàngal fii kan moo la woon lii ma ne ah man sama technicien ñu ngi fii parce que fii service agriculture service état léegi état il faut nga am diplôme nga ñëw nga bugg a liggéeyal sa bopp waaw comme ça ñu woon la liggéey bi nu mu demee waaw ñoom ñoo may jàppale daal ba ma mën a def tool bi après man tam ma ci jàngal ñeneen élèves ñuy ñëw ma jàngaleen ci mbay mi bu fekkee du jàng bi du bind bi rek ci bureau bi déedéet da ngay ñëw nga xool boo jàngee fale ba pare nga génni nga ñëw ci tool bi nga xool li ngay jàng fi ak li ngay def waaw comme ça boo génnee fii boo demee mën nga liggéeyal sa bopp.
Passy is a small road town located in the Fundu department of Western Senegal. With a population of around 10,000 people, it is a relatively urban community and lacks agricultural space. As a result, most of my work here for the Peace Corps so far has involved the promotion of micro-gardening, home and community tree nurseries, and soil conservation techniques. Posse does have a few large-scale gardening and farming operations, but they are limited to the outskirts of the city and surrounding villages, making it inaccessible for most of Posse, as many people cannot afford the land or the tools necessary to farm it. But to get a better look at the popular agricultural practices in the region, I'm here today at the field of Usman Kaita, one of the most prominent farmers in the area.
maa ngi tudd Ousmane Keita sama tool bi am naa fi fukk at ak juróom maa ngi jàngee métier bi Mbour ak sama benn patron tubaab foo naa jàngee métier bi bu ma jàngee métier bi ma ñib si Passy léegi di liggéeyal sama bopp di liggéey ak ay partenaires comme lu demee ay waa Québec di defal ay gox-goxaadi ay formation ay jigéen ci wàllu culture maraîchère ci wàllu li ñuy defaree tos loolu yëpp maa ngi fiy liggéey ak ay yeneen communauté waaw fii maa ngi ji ay fleur ak ay xeeti meññeef ay salade ak ay banana ak ay garabi limon waaw man lu may gis ci noor ak lu may gis ci nawet benn la mais nawet mooy gën a yokk parce que nawet mu nga ji gerte mu nga ji dugub mu nga ji mbokk waaw mais fekkee ne noor la mënoo ji dugub waaw su fekkee noor la tamit soo amee matériel goutte à goutte mën nga ji mbokk mën nga ji gerte waaw da nga mën a liggéey si nawet bi daal mën nga ko liggéey ci noor bi waaw loolu mën a liggéey mooy dugub.
Senegal has two distinct seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. Posse receives on average 29 to 39 inches a year in the 4 to 5 months of rainy season. This is when the vast majority of the country's crops are grown, because as Usman mentioned, farming is much easier and more accessible during this time. Farmers can grow crops on rainfall alone, and even those who can't afford a well or faucet can participate in agricultural production.
waaw maa ngi wax ci wàllu jumtukaay bi ñuy liggéey fii Sénégal donc ñu ngi am nañ fas te dañuy am nañ saret ba ñuy ji dañuy ji ak saret bi dañuy ji ak fas ak machine waaw Sénégal matériel yooyu nañ am comme matériel yi def comme bu ñuy jiyee ni fas beeg saret bi comme nañuy liggéeyee waaw jafe-jafe yu ma am mooy déjà am nañ ndox mais nag aussi buñ gënee renforcer matériel bi aussi dina gën a yombal liggéey bi comme goutte à goutte donc bu ñu amee comme ay tracteur ak ay matériel ay outillage yooyu tamit dañuy gën a dimbal ay jumtukaay parce que suñ ko amee aussi dinañu gën a jàppale ci liggéey bi waaw damay aaree sama tool benn première chose foog nga am mur clôture soo paree foog ngay traité garab yi comme demee ay produits bio di traité pour max yi donc ak ay sax donc pour aar sa gàncax aar sa suuf waaw am toos day def këriñ di liggéey ak ay xobi garab pour pompe ko nga xam ne doo am chimique.
Posse has a lot of agricultural potential. As seen with Usman Kaita's field, with proper care and technique, the soil here can support a wide variety of fruits and vegetables during both of Senegal's seasons. As with most urban centers across the world, most people here do not have access to farmland, but they do have the ability to garden on the household scale and in community spaces such as schools. And in my 9 months here, I've seen a large community push towards doing just that, using local and individual spaces to supplement diet and income. The Peace Corps Agricultural Program aims to support these community interests, and I'm hoping we can continue to assist Posse's pursuit of sustainable urban gardening through both education and funding.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Sa, and I'm an urban agriculture volunteer in the Peace Corps. And we're currently in my host family garden that my host brothers and I made when I arrived at my site. So in the garden, we have a different mixture of vegetables. For example, here we have cassava, and within the cassava, we have a papaya tree. And we're using a lot of different agriculture techniques to help us maximize the space. For example, we're intercropping. Here we have eggplant, and we have intercrop it with sweet potatoes underneath. And here we have a little bit of bisa, and then we have a moringa tree also in the bed. And the moringa tree is very valuable. It has a lot of nutrients and a lot of vitamins, which help with health. And then here we have a carrot. And in this bed, we have another papaya tree. And on the papaya tree, we have a little nursery of squash. So everything in the garden, we made it organically. We use compost and manure to amend the soil. And we also use ash to deal with pests as an amendment. And then when we had a pest infestation, a spider mats, we use Pufftin and neem solution to get rid of the pest. So the garden has been very helpful for my host family in terms of food security. Because my host mom will come in the garden to get vegetables to cook for lunch. And also we give some vegetable out to our neighbors, which have been very helpful within my community. We're doing a lot of intercropping. We intercrop some trees within beds. Here's another moringa tree. And because currently we're in the rainy season, but the rain is very inconsistent, so we have to use a different agricultural method to deal with the rain. For example, in this session, we have green peppers, and for the green peppers, we're doing it within. This is the hot pepper and green pepper. Both the green pepper and the hot pepper, we're using the Zaho to help us conserve water and to use less input. Yeah, this one have vegetable green peppers on it that are coming up. Yeah. So everything in the garden is very important for my host family, whether providing fruits or vegetables. And here we have Nana. My host mom will sell Nana to get us a little bit of cash that we will buy bread with for breakfast, or to just have a little bit of cash you can spend. And Nana is very important in my community, especially after lunch we'll have attaya, and Nana is a good element to add to attaya. So we'll sit together as a family or with friends and have attaya after lunch. And then here we have beans, and here we also have lettuce, but we have eaten most of the lettuce, but we still have a little bit remain. And here we have okra, and then we have a banana tree. And we're also doing a little bit of micro gardening. For example, some of my neighbors want Nana, so I'll help them make a micro garden that they can take to their houses. And then here we have a plantain tree that is coming up, and also a lemon tree, and more okra. And in this session we had squash, but I had to uproot the squash because it was taking over the garden. But I think we still have some of the squash remaining within the eggplant. Yeah, we uprooted the squash and put them here. So my host mom need them. They will come here and eat. Take them so we can eat them. So yeah, this is my family garden, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Kashi Youngs, and I'm an agriculture volunteer in Senegal, West Africa.
And my name is Timothy Moore, and I'm an environmental volunteer in Senegal, West Africa.
Here in our family compound, we have a green space, and we're using this area to create a garden to increase food security and increase variety in our family's diets and for the diet of ourselves also as we live here. So here, as you can see, is our garden. We have eggplants growing, cabbage, we have okras, we have lettuce, we have turnips, bissap, which is a local variety, tomatoes, hot peppers, green peppers, and onions. In these beds, we are also using peanut shells for mulch, so this is for water conservation also, and to keep the temperature of the soil from getting too hot, because that can kill seeds as they germinate. Inside the beds also, underneath the soil, we've double dug, and that means that we've only used compost or manure as a fertilizer, and then we've used charcoal powder, and we've also used wood ash. And so there's no fertilizer being used, so it's all organic farming. And these varieties are varieties that our family has asked us for, and so these are the species that they have deemed most important in their diet, and we usually harvest at least one thing out of this garden every once per week.
So in addition to a variety of vegetables that we're growing, we're also intercropping multi-purpose trees within the green space. So as you can see behind me, we have papayas growing within the garden. This provides an additional variety of food source, and it also creates a valuable microclimate within the garden itself, providing shade to cool the soil and to keep the harsh sun from damaging the vegetables. We're also growing citrus. We have orange trees and lemon trees growing within the green space. We're also growing Nebedai, which is Moringa oleifera. So the leaves of these trees are used in a traditional dish called mbu. And these trees are actually going to be used as a seed source only, and later we will create an intensive bed for the Moringa oleifera, so you can grow a lot of leaves in a small space, and this will help provide food security and income for our family.
And over here, you can see that we've begun to plant some mint, and we have cantaloupe growing as well with Bissap also. And so we use the mint almost every day in our tea that we make here called ataya. And the Bissap leaves they harvest also almost every day for a special sauce called rank, and it's made from the Bissap leaves. And then also, over here, we have a bed that we've created, and this has orange flesh sweet potatoes in it. And so this is extending the initiative to try and bring these to families here in Senegal, because the orange flesh sweet potato is very high in nutrition, and it has a lot of vitamins to help with infant nutrition and also mothers, but the family in general also. And thank you for right here. Thank you for visiting our garden with us today.
Thank you.
Wow, very much enjoyed those videos. Thank you for sharing them, Andrew, and a big thank you to the Peace Corps volunteers for sharing their stories. Next, we have two guest speakers with us who recently received OUAIP grants for improving their communities through gardening. Our first speaker is Brian Darby, Executive Director of Cultivate KC in Kansas City, Missouri. Her organization works to improve the viability and safety of farmers serving the urban core of Kansas City, while also increasing access to local food for all residents. This next video is an introduction to Brian and her organization.
Hello, I'm Brian Darby, the Executive Director of Cultivate Kansas City. Our work strengthens the local food system by improving our community's ability to sustainably produce food, creating income for farmers who grow that food, and ensuring everyone has access to the healthy food farmers grow. We know that 1 in 7 Kansas City residents experience chronic hunger, not because there is a lack of food, but because there is a lack of access to healthy food. A strong local food system centered around urban farms reduces food insecurity, increases environmental health, and creates economic stability. But the challenges to urban farming are steep and include climate change, land access, local zoning code, and access to capital. These challenges disproportionately affect people of color, and it is crucial that anti-racism work be at the center of everything we do. We work with both growers and consumers to create lasting and meaningful change. Our farmer-focused programs provide education, resources, and advocacy to local growers. For example, the New Roots for Refugees 4-year training and business incubation program helps families start and operate their own small farm businesses. For consumers, we provide matching dollars to federal hunger relief programs to increase the money low-resourced families can spend on food. We also donate produce directly from our farms and run a low-cost mobile grocer program. Change is growing in Kansas City, and it starts from the ground up.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for being with us today. You've got the
Thank
floor.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us today as well. Cultivate KC received the Urban Ag and Innovative Production Grant in 2022. And what we requested in that program was that we wanted to be able to provide this much needed infrastructure support to urban farmers in our area. So specifically what we requested was funding for a community greenhouse where growers in our area could start their plant starts, which is often a resource that just isn't available for people growing on small urban lots. We requested funding to increase and the size and the outreach for our existing tool library. We requested some funding for cold storage. We know that that's a need that often urban farmers don't have on their site, but we also heard pretty clearly from our community that our food rescue and food security foundations in the area could be supported by having cold storage in our area that would be an aggregation point that could go to serve other organizations. And then lastly, what we wrote into our Urban Ag and Innovative Production grant was this trying to address this need for more social connection and collective action among the many urban growers in our area. And so we have started some of that work as well. Our project is based in Midtown, which is a neighborhood in Kansas City, Missouri. There's already a pretty high concentration of for-profit and community-based urban farms and community gardens in this area. So co-locating it in this site made the most sense to us. But as you saw in the video, we do have a history of providing resources to urban farmers throughout the Kansas City area. And one of the populations that we've spent a considerable amount of time with are refugees and new Americans who have been resettled in the Kansas City, Kansas area. We operate a program called New Roots. It's done in partnership with a resettlement agency in our area, Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas, and they do most of the refugee resettlement on the Kansas side of the Kansas City state line. We are in our 16th year of the season, 16th season of our program. It is a farm training program and a business incubator. So someone who's coming to Catholic Charities to receive those initial services when they're coming to the United States, one of the things that is being asked is, what is your work history, or what is your interest in pursuing a career now that you're in the United States? And if somebody indicates that they had an agricultural background and are interested in pursuing that here, they can get recommended to our program. So all the farm families are leasing 1/8 of an acre plot on our larger 9-acre farm. In addition to the land, we have a greenhouse at that site. We have ample cold storage. We have wash stands, and then tools there as well that are available for rent. And then most importantly, we help aggregate sales of crops that are grown at that site. Folks are with us for 4 seasons. During that time, we're providing training to help sort of recalibrate your agricultural skills to the Kansas City area, as well as, that's rethinking your crop planning. When are things going to go in the ground? When do they need to come out to be ready for the market here? But then also maybe providing some guidance on what are the crops that you can grow that will sell at a farmer's market in the Kansas City area, or that would be enticing to the wholesale market. That being said, all of our farmers grow a significant number of culturally relevant crops. A lot of that is supporting that's food that's going to their family and their community. But then our team has found many opportunities throughout the years to create markets for those non-traditional, non-American crops. Other things that farmers are doing over that 4 years, they're trying out a variety of sales outlets. So we start everyone on the farmers market model because it's something that is fairly viable for our area. when farm families are going out to market in the first and second year, we are sending staff with them. By and large, the families that we work with are working on increasing their English literacy, but may come into the program with very low levels of English. In addition to the farmers market model, I mentioned that we provide wholesale opportunities, and then our organization runs a CSA, a veggie box subscription service that is we source we find the customers for the program and then work with all of the growers in our network from this program to provide the vegetables that go into those boxes. And when folks leave the program after 4 years, they have built a business. They've done all the record keeping that they would need to apply for a traditional loan or qualify for a cost share program through the USDA or FSA financing as well. And they filed their taxes, they have done record keeping, and they come out with a nice marketing package as well. So as a result of our 16 years, we've seen 44 farm families graduate from the program. 31 of those are still farming in our area. If you go to any farmers market in our area, you will see farmers selling under that banner that has New Roots proudly displayed on it. I think there's a greater availability of local food because of this program and many of the other farmers that we support through our organization. And we really see that when we go to restaurants and we see people proudly, chefs and restaurants proudly saying which farms they're sourcing from. Obviously, there are challenges that our graduates face, as well as other urban farmers in our area. Chief among those is land access. It's just getting harder to get these urban parcels. If you are successful at getting land, then you run into the infrastructure struggle of getting water and fencing and cooling and all of those things that you would need to be successful on your site or gaining access to those on another site. And then, of course, all farmers are battling the threats from climate change and competition from produce that's grown outside your area and brought in and sold at much cheaper than you could ever think to produce it. So I'm really hopeful that our UAIP project and some of the other funding that we've received for other programs from the USDA are helping us address some of these threats.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that information. Best of luck to you and your organization. And finally, we have Alicia Laramie with us today. She is a program director for New Farms for New Americans located in Burlington, Vermont. Her organization provides garden plots to approximately 70 households on 5 acres of land to support food production and community building for new Americans facing food insecurity and chronic health issues. Our final video will introduce Alicia and her organization.
New Farms for New Americans is located in the Winooski Valley Park District, specifically at the Ethan Allen Homestead. We have 80 plots in this location, and we have about 65 families who farm. We work with people from Burundi, Somalia, Congo, Bhutan, Nepal, Burma. Many of them were subsistence farmers before they came to the United States. You have the elders who came with the knowledge, and some of the youth in their 30s and 40s, and then definitely younger than that, may not have or remember growing food.
I always encourage her and my son also. You have to learn everything for farming. So that I say, my daughter, please go and help your fathers. This is so hard for them, so she likes to plant the flowers only. She likes flowers.
It's a place where people feel safe, they feel like they're at home again, and then you get to eat off the land too, because refrigerators and grocery stores are all foreign concepts in many ways.
It's different from Itan. We eat fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. Here is in grocery stores, There is the or frozen or storage before 1 year, 2 years. We don't know how many years. So we are doing the garden to get the fresh vegetables.
The people I work with here at New Farms for New Americans, they have this tremendous skill of growing food and saving food, and it's like the prior generation of Vermonters where growing and saving food was still very much a part of primarily rural life, but even urban backyards. And now we're seeing this return to growing food in our backyard, and I think there's a real connection between the farmers here and Vermonters in that regard. A big part of this program is also helping people to grow culturally significant crops.
We say in Nepali kali sak. It's bitter. We mix all this one kali sak, petu, and palangi. We mix together, and we make the curry.
We have African corn, which is similar to a dent corn. People will roast it and it tastes kind of like a roasted starchy potato. But a lot of that corn also will be saved to mill it, and we have a corn mill that we also provide for farmers. So after they've dried it, they can go mill it and have flour. Hi, how are you? Is this sog? The mustard greens? Yes. Are you gonna leave it in the sun? For the sun today to dry? 2 days. I believe Vermont has a tradition of being very welcoming to people from other places and really values that as part of who we are. The farmers that I work with here are neighbors who people have connections with, and maybe some people don't speak English, but you don't need English to share in the joy of growing a zucchini or growing a beautiful looking tomato. That is a universal language of food, and it's an easy way to connect with people and learn about other places.
Great video, Alicia. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Glad to be here. My talk might be a little all over the place, but just bear with me. We were one of the farms that recently experienced the floods in Vermont, and so we've pretty much lost everything this season, and it's been a lot of triage since that about 2 weeks ago. So, but I'll just share what, I've been in this position for 11 years now, and our program is about 17 or 18 years old. We are a program of AALV, which is a nonprofit organization that works with refugees and new Americans for long-term integration into the United States. And most of the work at this organization is for case management, and I work with staff who are primarily helping clients adjust to long-term life in the United States. And so New Farms for New Americans is just one program and one entity of this other organization. When I sat down to think about what I might talk about with what does it mean to have a community garden, more than just what does our program do and the kinds of things that we offer. I was thinking about how when we talk about this word community, it means so many different things, so many different people. And when you think of the sort of traditional community garden that's out there, which historically people there may have had a lot in common. Here with New Farms for New Americans, there are some things that are in common, but community means many different things. And first and foremost, when we have the 80 households that are farming with us, their community may just be their family that they come down to the garden to be with and grow food together. Their community might be the people that speak the same language as them, people who may have arrived into the United States from the same country or even the same refugee camp, or it's their religion. And so I approach the New Farms for New Americans garden with that in mind, of that people come to that space and that place for many different reasons, with a different understanding and experience of what it means to be there farming. And so there is not a lot of community always across the board, but people are there in community with however they identify or define that word. And I was thinking about some of the lessons I've learned in terms of community as it pertains to the refugee and immigrant communities, and how, with a lot of talk of inclusion and equity, one of those things that makes people feel like they're in a community of people is being able to understand everything that's going on around them. And that involves making sure that you have interpretation for each of the languages that's spoken, and not just interpretation, but also the messaging and systems for messaging people, because we know that in our garden, and I'm sure with some of the other people that have spoken today, the communication may not be through email, which is such a common way, but not for this program. And so we have WhatsApp messages, we have phone calls, we have voice messages, we have in-person meetings a lot. And so we're really trying to make sure that, when we talk about community, we're including everybody where they're at and in the ways that they come to the farm. Our farm is not focused on business. It's really about food security and about education. And we used to, many, many years ago, have a program that was more financial and about business development. But Vermont, and in particular Burlington, is a really competitive place to be a farmer, and it's super challenging, and the growing season is incredibly short. So we did a lot of asking what farmers want, and a lot of people just wanted to grow food for their families. They wanted to have the culturally relevant food that they're familiar with. They wanted to own a little bit more of their life in the United States and have ownership over that experience. And growing food was, for people who come from agrarian backgrounds, who are subsistence farmers, all of those things, that is one way that you really feel like you're at home when you come here, is that you have a piece of land. It is yours for as long as you want to garden. You can come back to it year after year. And that is what helps people start to feel like they are a Vermonter, that they have purpose and meaning. And the gardens provide so much more than just food. Even if we are focused more on food security, they are for people's exercise, for people's mental health, for their it's a place for people to talk with their friends, gossip, laugh. And right now, it's a place where a lot of people are crying since we've lost our 10 acres of land to the floods. And it's not just about the food that's been lost and the food that's been lost for the winter. It's also about the seeds that have been lost. And, these are communities that save a lot. They save all of their seeds, and a lot of them have traveled with their seeds from their home countries to their life as a refugee or living in a refugee camp to the United States. These are seeds that are more difficult to come by. some of them very unique and special. And I was just speaking with a farmer the other day who said he only had 3 and he had planted them all this year of a particular variety, and he was so excited, and now he's lost all of them. And so when we think about what's happened with the floods, it's been so much more than just the food. It's also just a way of life for people, especially in the summer. And we're thinking about the future now, and what is this winter going to be like for people in these communities who their freezers will be empty, and whether or not this is going to have some other traumatic sort of mental health, behavioral problems, you know, in the winter months. But you know, there's been a lot of good that's come out of it. I feel like we've learned about what it means to come together as a community, and we had a community meeting to talk about, okay, maybe we're different cultures, maybe we're different religions and different ethnicities, but we are this one culture of farmers, and we have all lost a great deal. And that's one of these things where we now, you know, we have come together as a result of the flooding, and people are sharing videos with each other and pictures of their gardens, and it's been this interesting but other side of gardening that has happened a few times. We are in a flood zone, and that is where the best agricultural land is. And ironically, you know, we were awarded the Urban Agriculture Grant 3 years ago, so we're in our 3rd year, and we recently applied for another one, but the focus was on climate adaptations, to be more resilient, have our whole farm be climate resilient strategies. It's a little late right now, it feels like it, but it's also never too late. And we're really excited to start. I mean, everyone's already planning for next year, and what can we do to address climate change at our garden, and work with Natural Resource Conservation Services to make our space a stronger, more resilient space. So we're really excited to get this next grant going, and we'll finish off this one strong. And you know, I'll just end with a story I heard recently from another farmer. I'm not sure where they were from, maybe Vermont, and they said that their father had brought them to a casino and said, you know, what we're doing here isn't gambling. What gambling is what farmers do, and they plant their dollars in the soil. And there was a lot of truth to that, and it will be next week when I do our next community meeting. I'm going to tell this story about, you know, how when we farm we gamble, but sometimes it's worth the gamble when we get the crops at the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Great story. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your organization during this time and terrible flood. Very sorry to hear that. Well, this concludes our webinar today. I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank all of our presenters for sharing their very honest stories with us. I'd also like to thank all of you for attending the People's Garden webinar. For those interested in receiving the latest news from our office, please sign up for email updates by visiting farmer.gov/urban. You will receive information about upcoming webinars, our newsletter, and other information to stay engaged. Don't forget to register for the People's Garden. We currently have more than 1,400 registered gardens. Why not make yours one of them? Questions and feedback on the webinar series can be directed to our email address at ouaip@usda.gov. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.